welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, man, the Jaguars gave me a lot to talk about. Man, didn't expect all this action in one day. We're going to go over all that action with the Jacksonville Jaguars in a second on this episode. Of course, with every episode, we do also open up with the Get It Off Your Chest segment. Now, in this episode, I'm going to tell you about the two R's. The two R's are restructure or release. When it comes to the NFL offseason, you see all these players signing with different places, things like that, or whatever. You see them doing these different things, but you also try to figure out how the cap situation either gets relief or gets worse. And these are the two reasons, the two R's, as to why they get better or worse. Restructure. When you restructure a contract, say you had a guy signed last year, you find a way to either extend or restructure the contract to make more of the money available in terms of cap space, or you let it sit as is sometimes. Now, a perfect example of freeing up a lot of money is Dak Prescott. You look at that contract; they freed up a lot of money with him, and then redoing CD Lamb's contract with Dallas Cowboys to free up money they didn't have to free up. Those things tend to happen. Of course, it's some players, if you look, they look at their contracts and they look at if they're valuable enough to even think of restructuring their contracts. Sometimes they just get released, and that frees up money in its own right, or sometimes does, because there's also dead money that sits on the books for teams as well. There's also savings that happen. So it's kind of a balance of both of those. So while you're looking at all these free agents that are getting signed, different players that are staying with teams, to say restructure or release, you're going to hear those words multiple times, probably 11 times this offseason. Just be prepared for it. You can tell them, Mike Patton, host of Touring the AFC South, got you prepared. That is the Get Off Your Chest segment for this episode. The two R's, of course. And while we're speaking about the two R's, there's also a third R that goes along with all these different things. That R is retirement. And for the Jacksonville Jaguars, they had Mitch Morse announced, center Mitch Morse announced he is retiring after 10 seasons in the NFL. Now, last year he did sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars after spending majority of his career with the Buffalo Bills. Veteran center comes in, plug and play. He was solid in there. I'm not going to say he was spectacular, no, but he was solid and was an upgrade over what they previously had. We'll see what happens when it comes to the next center. Now, they could go back to their previous center that they had. That was a rookie from Kentucky. They actually put him in, and then, of course, he got replaced by Mitch Morse this season as well. They could go back to that same center. That is a possibility. But there also is a possibility of free agency as well. Now, when it comes to free agency, there are three names that I want to point out that they could look at. One of those is Drew Dahlman. He was the starting center for the Atlanta Falcons last season. He's 26 years old, considered the best center available right now. Now, if you look at the Atlanta Falcons offensively, their line was not bad at all. He was part of that resurgence. He also was the part of the reason they ran the football pretty solidly with Bijan Robinson back there leading the charge. So in that sense, he's a proven guy, proven to keep things clean up front. And one thing he likes to do, he likes to run block. Why this is key is because Liam Cohen, the new coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars, wants to more than likely set the tempo, run the football. He did the same things in Tampa Bay as well with multiple running backs. So he's probably going to want a center that is going to be able to set the tone running the football, and Dahlman can definitely do that. Now, he won't be cheap. I will tell you that right now. 13 to 14 million per year is what is being expected he's going to be paid or want to be paid. So Jacksonville's going to have to pony up. Remember the last time they ponied up for a free agent offensive lineman at big time level? That was Brandon Sheriff. Now, that one did not work out quite as well as Jacksonville fans wanted it to. However, this one may work out in their favor if they are to make that decision. We'll see what happens. The other option that is out there is a Josh Myers. Now, Josh Myers is a free agent for Green Bay. He's a center. There's also a possibility he could go back to Green Bay. So let's just put that out there. And as far as Dahlman, I think Dahlman's going to go elsewhere to get paid. I could be wrong, but hey, we'll see what happens. But as far as Josh Myers, there was some contention there that he may have been the weak link with that offensive line, perhaps. Whether that is or isn't true, we're going to find out this offseason and with his next job that he has. He'll be a little bit less money than Dahlman. He isn't highly rated. He isn't as highly rated as Dahlman is, but he is an effective center. I mean, he led the way for Josh Jacobs to have a monstrous year for the Green Bay Packers. So, he can't be that doggone bad. So, that's a possibility of someone they may want to look at as well. And then also Ryan Kelly. That's an intriguing option. Now, Ryan Kelly has a ton of experience, is a solid run blocker, has done a few things for the Colts, but he is definitely older than both Josh Myers and Dahlman as well, Drew Dahlman. He's definitely older than both of them. So with that being said, if you're going to sign him to a contract, it's probably going to be a 1 to 2 year deal, being that he's battled a lot of injuries and still battling through injuries to play more football. So that may be a 1 to 2 year deal for him. You're probably going to pay him a little less money as well. It just, to me, might be the best option. Might be one of these options, but not necessarily the best option. I mean, who knows? They may go back to the center they had in 2023. However, just want to throw out a few different options that they may have, because let's face it, the offensive line for the Jacksonville Jaguars needs some work. It was not great last year. I know Trevor Lawrence, of course, he did get injured as the season went on, shoulder injury, and was, of course, out for the rest of the season. But he's been under siege, as well as, as bad as people want to say he's playing, which, I've definitely said he hasn't played to his full capability. But as bad as you want to say he hasn't played to his full capability, you've got to also put the onus on this offensive line not being as good as they could be as well. So with Liam Cohen coming in, it would not surprise me if he goes out and brings in his own center to replace Mitch Morse and to move on into the 2025 season. Mitch Morse, congratulations on retirement. Hoping you well. Your next chapter of your whatever career that you plan on doing, or whatever thing you plan on doing as well. Wishing you the best. We're going to head to a quick commercial break, because this was not the only news that the Jacksonville Jaguars gave us. There's more. We're going to get into that when we come back from this commercial break on Touring the AFC South.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off of these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get this EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
And we are back on Touring the AFC South, episode 324. And we talked about Mitch Morse retiring from the NFL for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And like I mentioned, there was more news that dropped from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Next up on the docket, that would be Mr. Christian Kirk. Now, Christian Kirk was one that they talked about him potentially being waived or cut during the off season. That was talked about a lot. And the news eventually broke out that he was going to be waived. But we got a serious curveball that happened, and he actually ended up getting traded. Christian Kirk, yes, is getting traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars, to the Houston Texans within the division for a 2026 seventh round pick. Yes, just a 2026 seventh round pick. Now, Christian Kirk is slated to make $15.5 million next year. The Houston Texans have said they will pay his full salary next season, which is what the Jacksonville Jaguars did not want to do. Now, it seems like a lot, but when you look at it, they were paying Stephon Diggs last year $23 million or $22.5 million, I believe is what it was. Let me take a look here. Let's see, about $22.5 million last year, which is $7 million less they're going to pay Christian Kirk to be the number 2 wide receiver with the Houston Texans. Now, a lot of people, the first thing that people have asked me is, why would the Jacksonville Jaguars do this? Why would they trade him within the division? Why would they even, consider this? Well, first, you also got to understand it's a business. They don't want to waive him and then take on those cap hits. So that's why they are waiving him. Simple. They don't want to pay him that money, and they don't want to take on any cap hits or anything of that nature if they don't have to. Secondly, the reason why they probably are trading him is because if you look at the last 2 seasons, he hasn't been healthy. He played 12 games in 2023, and he played 8 games in 2024. That's trending downward when it comes to being available. Your best ability is your availability. He hadn't been fully available. Also, another thing, throw in there. Third thing, he is a guy that plays in the slot. Now, playing in the slot is great, if you want to, play for the any team or whatever. But also, you got to understand, they signed Gabe Davis last year to a pretty nice contract, bringing him over from the Buffalo Bills as well with Mitch Morse. However, he got injured. He'll be back next season. You know where he's probably going to be. That's where Christian Kirk does not want to be. There you go. You would be paying big money to 2 wide receivers, one that got hurt last year and one got hurt 2 years in a row in Christian Kirk. Another factoring reason. And of course, Brian Thomas Jr., you may throw him in the slot as well. So now you've got Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis, got Parker Washington there as well. So you got, I would say they probably still need to add some wide receivers to that room. They did let go of one other wide receiver. We'll talk about that a little later. But just looking at everything, yeah, it's just a lot going on. You had to get rid of Christian Kirk because you weren't going to pay him that $15.5 million contract. It's a base salary for him, by the way. It isn't just a salary. It's a base salary that they were going to have to pay him. So, yeah, with that being said, they got rid of him. Do I think for the Texans, they're hoping he maybe turns the clock back to 2022 when he had his best season as a pro, over 1,000 yards receiving, and he was showing out down there in Jacksonville, with doing a lot of things that people thought he would not be able to do, being the lead wide receiver for a team. I personally did not expect that, but hey, he shut me up. That's all I can say. Hey, he shut me up, and hey, there's nothing I can say there. And then also, if you look at the Houston Texans, look at their wide receiver core. Besides Nico Collins, who do you have that's consistently available and consistently performs? You don't have anyone else there. Stephon Diggs more than likely is going to be out to start the season. He may be back. I would say this. Let me take that back. He may not be healthy to start the season. Who knows? Just depend upon his healing how fast he's able to try to get back. But even when he does get back, he's probably not going to be the same guy. And then also, he is a free agent, so there is the possibility that he does not come back to the Houston Texans. Also, you have Tank Dell. Tank Dell, we've had another surgery follow-up on his knee, but either way it goes, his knee was in bad condition. It's the second year in a row he's ended the season with an injury. And you can't count on somebody that's going to be continually injured. I know it's not necessarily Tank Dell's fault. However, like I mentioned previously, the best ability is availability. And Tank Dell, unfortunately, has not been consistently available, especially when you need him in the playoffs and the crunch games toward the crunch time games towards the end of the season. So with that being said, I can understand the pickup of Christian Kirk. Do I think they need more to add? Yes, they definitely need to add more because, also I'm concerned. I'm not sure if they believe in John Mechie III as a wide receiver that can contribute for them. Hutchinson, I believe is the other wide receiver from Iowa State. I'm not sure necessarily they believe in him enough to elevate him on the wide receiver depth chart. You do have Robert Woods. He's still there, but, you got to also remember he's a wily veteran at that point. A lot of times they use wily veteran. That means he's a older player at the position. That's usually what that means. So, no offense to Robert Woods, but hey, he's a wily veteran at this point. So, with all that going on, Christian Kirk's a welcome addition to that offense, and then more than likely they'll try to maneuver a few other things around to maybe bring in another wide receiver, or who knows, they may draft another wide receiver. I will say this, before they do any of that, they may want to take a look at that O-line. Got to do some work there. You know what I'm saying? It's just looking a little rough in there. Yikes. But we're going to take another quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about another development that happened. Yes, there is more developments that happened with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, somebody got their walking papers. I'm going to tell you who when we come back from this commercial break on Touring the AFC South.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, we are back on Touring the AFC South. And like I mentioned before the commercial break, there was another bit of news for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, they were just full of news on Thursday. They just were. I guess they just decided, hey, this is going to be my day, our day, to drop all this news on NFL, folks. And the last bit of news that we have is the Jacksonville Jaguars released tight end Evan Engram. Well, for those that don't remember, it was 2 seasons ago that he had over 100 receptions as a tight end. Yes, he had over 100 receptions as a tight end in 2023, 116 receptions, 963 yards, and 4 touchdowns. This past season, I should say, only played 9 games. I think he's dealing with a hamstring issue, so that those can come and go at times. They can sneak up on you too. 47 receptions, 365 yards, 1 TD. So definitely had an incredibly down year after having a career year. So he has been released. Of course, just to give you a little background, he will be 31 this season. So maybe that somewhat played into that, and maybe thinking he can't recapture the magic. Don't know. But it sounds like the Jags wanted to move on, basically, and weren't out. It doesn't sound like they weren't interested in potentially a restructure, or they couldn't come to an agreement on a restructure. One of the two happened, or they just decided, hey, we're just going to do a full release. But it is what it is. They've released Evan Engram. Now, of course, the cap savings is 5.9, but of course, you also got to deal with the dead money, which is 13.5 million. Now, he's going to be looked at. He's a premium pass catching tight end. He definitely can do some things in the passing game. Never been known to be a good run blocker, which is probably something that maybe Liam Cohen looked at. Perhaps, don't know. But, Liam Cohen definitely wants to run that football. And Evan Engram, he definitely wants to catch that football. So, hey, maybe that's part of the reason. We don't know. But what we will say is that he's going to look pretty interesting to some teams out there who are looking for another tight end. One of them being within the division. Of course, that may be the Indianapolis Colts, perhaps. We'll see. But, of course, we don't know. Just throwing the name out there. But there will be some teams looking for a starting tight end. I mean, there's another team within the division that could potentially use him as well, the Tennessee Titans. But we'll see what happens. There are some other teams, but hey, we're just going to leave it at that. No, we're not. We're going to throw one more team out there. The Chicago Bears. They could potentially use him too. Of course, they do have Cole Kmet up there, though, so that might be a little bit of double your fun at the tight end position. So I'm just throwing names out there, just having a little fun. But anyway, Evan Engram definitely is a guy that's going to catch on somewhere else. Not sure he's going to get the same type of money. He got 3 years, $41.5 million when they extended him. But hey, we'll see what happens when it comes to Evan Engram. But his days of being a Jacksonville Jaguar are over. And so are the days of Ronald Darby as a cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He also got cut. Now, with him, they saved they actually 2.4 million is what they saved, but 2.7 in dead money. So, basically they lose money. Just not a lot of money. With Ronald Darby, he was more of a Doug Peterson guy to begin with. Doug Peterson brought him in to, I guess, be a veteran in the locker room, and he ended up being the starting veteran in the locker room. Usually when that happens, it's not necessarily a good sign, especially when he ends up being the guy that's the most healthy out there. That's not good. That's supposed to be Tyson Campbell, the guy you just paid. That's who that's supposed to be. But hey, it ended up being Darby, and of course, you had a few different things happen with people being out of position and him throwing his hands up. Now, were they out of position, or was he in the wrong place at the wrong time? I don't know. But, I didn't get the full picture of it. But, there was a lot of throwing hands up and a lot of frustration at times when it came to Ronald Darby. Well, he won't have that frustration anymore with the Jacksonville Jaguars because he's gone. But another guy that's gone is Mr. Devin Duvernay. Now, he got waived. He actually signed there last offseason. He's a great guy in the punt return game, the return game in general. It can be a guy to do some things at wide receiver. Well, we never got to see what he could do at wide receiver because he never cracked the line up there. Returning kicks, what kicks? It's almost like that all disappeared and left and stayed in Baltimore. Unfortunately, it just didn't seem like it was a great fit between Devin Duvernay and the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he has been cut as well. So a lot of news from the Jacksonville Jaguars. What all does this mean? Well, we know one thing it means. They're probably going to be spending some money and trying to move some money around to make a few things happen. Now I did mention in the previous episode about Andre Cisco being a guy that could potentially bring back or is going to be looked at from some other teams. We'll see if he lands back there in Jacksonville or not. Also, offensive line help. We will see if they dive out there and look. Now, we know they took care of Walker Little. He's going to be one of their starting offensive tackles potentially. And then you also know the other is on a rookie deal. So those are your two offensive tackles. You got one of your guards in Ezra Cleveland. Is Brendan Sheriff going to stay or not, or come back, I should say? We shall see what happens. But, if some Jacksonville Jaguars fans have it how they want it, he won't come back. But if, say, they let him go, then you got a hole there to fill. So You've got a lot of different things to think about. You got a lot of things to think about towards the future. Jacksonville Jaguars also, you got something to think about in this here draft. Boy, oh boy, because of course you can't necessarily get a pass rusher, one on the outside because you already got uh, Josh Hines Allen. You already got on the other side of him Trayvon Walker. So you're going to get a third one? Nah, I don't think that works. Are you going to get a linebacker? You invested in Chad Muma and Devin Lloyd, and you just paid your starting linebacker who's a tackling machine and a contract extension. So is it something there? I don't think so. Cornerback, you just paid Tyson Campbell. You might go with the young guys that you have there, as well at that position. Which could you draft a corner? Potentially. Could you trade down? That's also an option too. Free agency, it's still there. A lot of questions, a lot of things to be talked about, looked at, maybe combed over with a fine-tooth comb a gazillion times. But we have a lot of time. There's going to be a lot of different things that happen when it comes to this free agency. Thank you all for listening to this episode. Of course, we had a fun time talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars and the 50-11 moves they made on Thursday. I totally did not have this on my bingo card. I am your host, Mike Patton of Touring the AFC South. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton82. That's MikePatton 82. You can also find me on Blue Sky with the same tag as well. Also, you can find me on Instagram and Threads at the THA, not THE, _general_MP. Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And also, the Mike Patton Network hosts this show too. So you can see my smiling face, well, smiling or talking face, whichever one you want to call it, on your TV screens, your phones, or wherever you catch the show on YouTube. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you hadn't. Hit the bell as well, so that way you can catch every single episode when it drops. And Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, rate the show. Give me a compliment on the show if you want to talk about things you don't like on the show. There you go. The floor is all yours when it comes to those comments. I'd appreciate a good comment, though. Thank you very much. But hey, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. We are out. Peace.